What is up, YouTube? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another production music walkthrough. This week, I've got a great one for you. We're going to be looking at a track called Power Swing, which is an uplifting, inspirational, positive power rock ballad. And so lots of guitars, multiple guitar layers going on. And so this week we're going to be looking at all the patches. We're going to look at the sounds. We're going to look at some of the lessons that I learned in working on this patch. But one of the big takeaways is working in collaboration with other players. I am not a guitarist by any stretch of the imagination. And so when it came time to write kind of a rock power ballad, specifically for the PGA on CBS, I had to call in the big guns, some people who actually know what they're doing with a guitar. And so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to look at the different guitar sounds, how we layer so many guitar sounds on top of the strings and drums and everything else. So why don't you join me for an in-depth walkthrough of Power Swing. Yeah, so this track has been used actually quite a bit on the PGA on CBS, whether it's the PGA Tour Golf or the Masters Tournament for the last several years, actually. So it's been really, really good to me, and one of my favorite tracks. And the inspiration for this track was actually, and stay with me, was actually contemporary Christian worship music. And what I mean by that is if you strip away, lyrics and everything from that sound, what you're left with is this really kind of positive, uplifting rock. So using websites like multitracks.com, which has so many of these praise and worship songs and these contemporary Christian songs that you can listen to without the lyrics, and you can actually download the stems and check them all out yourself, is such a great way to learn how some of these tracks are put together. But this was a sound that has been used quite a bit on CBS, and having a background coming, playing in churches and things like that, I knew exactly what that sound should be. But like I said, I'm not a guitarist. So when we get into the guitar layers here a little bit later, I'm going to talk through my solutions. But let's first start with the drums. That we start off with a suspended cymbal sample that I recorded. This is one of my just go-to suspended cymbals that I've used repeatedly through, just something to get us out of the gate, along with some big, fat, powerful drums using Native Instruments Studio Drummer that comes with Complete. Actually, kind of getting into the red here. That's a sad face. But yeah, and you'll notice there's tons of punch to this, and the reason is because I am running these drums through parallel compression. Now, in case you don't know what parallel compression is when you take a sound like the drums and you want them to really pop, and so you send the signal through a compressor and you squash the daylights out of that sound, and then you run it side by side or in parallel to the existing drum sound. And so that's what's going on here. And if you'll notice, this compressor is really kicking in very, very hard. Let's see if I can. That's just the compressed sound. So the drums without the compression, they sound okay. But you run them through parallel compression and you mix them in side by side. I also throw a little bit of transient to kind of pop out the attacks and to make the sustains of the drums and toms really, really push through. All right, so those are the drum sounds that are happening. Nothing too fancy as far as the programming goes. You do want to make sure when you're programming acoustic drums, you want to make sure that you're not programming an 8-armed drummer. So you're hitting, you're hitting the hi-hat and the crash and 2 crash cymbals and a ride cymbal on the same beat. Those are the kind of things that can make some of those drum sound fake. All right, and so what's some Christian music without some loops? So these are just, yeah, I'm pretty sure these are Apple loops, just layered in there. EQ'd the bottom end so that they feel more like top loops. So I have that loop layer and that loop layer. Put those together. And so that's just top level energy, just to add a little bit of motion. All right, and so that's really all my percussion. Then I get into my bass textures, and I have an electric bass that I recorded myself, just boom, 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 boom. It's nothing fancy, one finger on a cheap bass, right? And so looking at the plugins, I am running Guitar Rig, and all of my guitars are run through Guitar Rig here. Pretty sure this is a preset. I love me some presets. I use presets quite a bit. And then I layered that on top of an alchemy patch. So let's go back to here with the drums. The loops. I did sprinkle in some piano here too, to kind of fill in the bottom end. Just low piano octaves. That's what the bass is doing. Okay, and then it kind of changes up. It's kind of this ABA type structure. Then we get into my primary melody for the track. Yeah, and it's kind of in C with some F sharps, so it's really in G, starting on the 4 chord, but getting that F sharp in there into an outline or outlining a C chord. That's that kind of Lydian sharp 4 motion. If that feels like a foreign language to you, that's all right. Now this piano patch, I have quite a few piano patches, but I keep coming back to the Logic Steinway Grand. I keep coming back to it. It just sounds so good, and it's no nonsense. And here's why I love the Steinway Grand. And it is because, I can't remember if I talked about this, and it's this guy right there. That means that the filter cutoff is determined by the velocity. So the harder you hit the piano, the harder the velocity is, then the brighter the sound is. And that's exactly like a real piano, where you would have a hammer with a bit of felt on it. So if the hammer hits softly, then you're going to get a darker, warmer sound. But as the hammer hits harder, that felt on the hammer compresses, and so you get a brighter sound. And so on top of the different velocity layers, that if we looked at these patches, we can see the multiple velocity layers here. But on top of that, they've layered in a filter cutoff. So we have the different velocities, but also the filter cutoff, which means that I have found it to be one of the more expressive piano patches. And I've tried East-West piano patches. I have all the Native Instruments piano, going back to acoustic piano 10 years ago. And so I just keep coming back to the Steinway Grand. All right, so we're 4, 5, 6. We haven't hit the 1 chord yet. Not yet, not yet. And here it comes. There's the 1 chord. So usually you start a phrase musically starting on the 1 chord, and this chord here, which drives energy back to the top of the form, would be a cadence chord. So it might be the 5 chord or even a 4 chord if you're looking for like plagal motion or something like that, and 4 to 1. But instead, I start on a 4 chord, 4, 5, 6, and then I end up on the 1 chord because that helps set it up when we go. Again, it wouldn't sound like, you know, contemporary Christian worship music if you didn't have loops and if you didn't have an abundance of suspended chords. So that's what's happening there. I double up the melody with some string layers here. All right. And viewers of my channel will recognize this trick. There's some Symphobia on top of some Vienna Symphonic, and I have talked previously about why we do that. Symphobia is a nice big ensemble sound, but Vienna brings. All right, that sounds like a lot of players. It's really wet, but that's really dry, and it's such a fast moving melody on top of the piano. Throw on some legato strings underneath it. Throw on some dulcimer. Let's solo that. This is Cinesample's zither. Absolutely love this patch. And so playing something like the melody, but it complements, I'm looking to complement the melody. All right. So nothing fancy, just some really straightforward, reverbs. In fact, these reverbs, the 6.6 Bata Church, that is one of my favorite reverbs. Whoops. That's one of my favorite reverbs from Logic, and it is loaded in whenever you load in the piano. The Steinway grand piano loads in both of these, and they just happen to be my favorite. They just sound really good right out of the gate. All right, and we're about to get to the guitars, so if you're here for the guitars, just wait, we're almost there. Finally, we have some ES2 patch. I think it was called like Massive Trance Pad or something like that. Have a tremolo on there to make it an easy gate. All right, so that's the pads by themselves. Throw on a tremolo. Tremolo tool is so handy. So handy. All right, so that gets us to the guitars. Like I said, I am not a guitarist at all. As a matter of fact, the only guitar that I recorded myself were these guys down here. Just drop D tuning, playing power chords just with one finger, literally. And so just with a really cheap $200 Ibanez guitar with some guitar rig, just out of the gate, easy, out of the box, I should say, super straightforward sound. And I split it to the left and the right. And the trick is to use different sounds. I try to use different pickups when I do panning of my guitars, a left and a right. I try to do different pickups. If you're using the same guitar, if you can use different guitars, absolutely go with 2 different guitars. But if I have just one guitar, then I will use different pickup setups and then run those through 2 different amp modeling. So you pan them a little bit, and you get some nice full sounds. All right, now I knew we needed more. So I called in a couple of friends. Two friends helped me out with this track. One person is a good friend of mine named Isaak, who actually owns and operates the Atlanta Pedal Company. He makes his own custom guitar pedals. Really, really fantastic. Fantastic guy, awesome dad, awesome husband, awesome friend, and an awesome player as well. And he's a boom operator for some of your favorite TV shows. So that's what he does when he's not playing guitar. And so he sent me a couple of stems. And so he sent me this guy. So listen to those together. Run those through. Let me close some of these. This is just guitar rig, which comes with complete. So there's my left, and here's my right. And he also sent me this guy. No, actually, no, that was a different player. That was a different friend of mine. I think he sent this guy as well. Yep. And this is run through really simple guitar rig setup using a really simple pedal board setup through Logic. This is just stock Logic. Some stock Logic pedal boards with some sample delay to make it sound wider. So that's coming right down the middle. It's making it sound a little bit wider. So we have the second rhythm guitar section, which sounds like this. I'm hearing one other thing. Ah, yes. This is him. Chris gave me these samples as well. Just clean, just chords. Run through a really twangy kind of clean patch. Yeah, that wasn't the cleanest ending there, but it really gets covered up when we get everything going on. All right, and so then that takes me to another friend of mine who lives in Memphis. Chris lives in Atlanta, hence Atlanta Pedal Company, and another friend of mine named Donnie Wayne Smith. Now, Donnie, I played in cover bands with Donnie back in Memphis. Donnie is an amazing, amazing player and has a fantastic ear for tone. As a matter of fact, he would show up to gigs with just a JBL speaker and his pod pedal board, and each cover song that we played, he would dial in the sound, whether it was Hotel California or Pour Some Sugar on Me or whatever, and each guitar sound sounded exactly like the record. So an amazing, amazing lead guitar player, a super good photographer, good friend, and he's actually Winger's touring guitarist. So if you've ever seen Winger within the past, I'd say 5 or 6 years, then you've seen Donnie. Donnie is super awesome. And so Donnie did me a solid and laid some tracks down for me in the with some rhythm parts. Super straightforward with some, I call these edge, like, U2 edge. So super delay heavy. As I listen to those might be me. Those don't sound nearly good enough to be Donnie. I think those are me. Uh, if you're only hearing like one or two notes at a time, it's me. Just run through some really, really simple guitar rig stuff. But then we get to the money. And the money that Donnie just brought the heat. And here it is clean. But you throw on some guitar rig and yeah. All right, so listen to all of the guitars put together and you get this. Oh, so good. All right, and so when it came time, like when working with Donnie, we have a couple of options as composers as far as working with collaborators. Okay, we have a couple of different ways that we can interact with them, how we can pay them or compensate them. So way number one is just to give them money. And I've absolutely done that. I've brought bass players and things in and, hey, Rick, here's $50. Thanks for laying this down. Here, sign this little contract and we're good to go. And so there's just paying outright, paying for a session musician, a work for hire. So that's way number one. Way number two is to, as a collaborator, give the musician portion of your royalties. Basically, give them a few points. You can either split it 50-50, which I found working with collaborators, if you're going the royalty split way, just split it 50-50. It doesn't ever really benefit anybody to start splitting hairs and making it overly complicated. Just 50-50 I have found works absolutely best for that. And so maybe I have some other tracks. I have some like epic Americana tracks that I worked with a dobro player out in San Antonio, and maybe I might do that track next for a production walkthrough. So you can pay them, you can cut them into the royalty share, and any sync fees or whatever. And then the third way is trade or barter. And I offered all three of those. I was like, which do you want to go, Donnie? Do you want some money? Do you want royalty share, or would you like to trade? And he actually took me up on the trade. I play a little bit of blues harmonica. I need a guitar. He needed some harp. And so, yeah, we just traded and we signed the papers and it was all good to go, because this kind of guitar playing comes naturally to Donnie. He makes it sound so easy because to him it is easy. He's just like me playing drums or me programming dulcimer or strings. That would be difficult for some people, because they just don't, that's just not in their wheelhouse. Just like playing guitar is absolutely not in my wheelhouse. So I would encourage you, if you're looking, if you need something for your track, and if you know some players, then if you can't pay them, then find some other way, especially if you're working on something that might make it onto the PGA, then absolutely look for that and see what you can do. I always try to barter or trade, and if not trade, then I usually try to pay them a little something. All right, so that's the whole sound of the A section, and then we're getting into this B section here. And so we go from the primary melody, which is a ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da. We go from that into this. Just a different B section, but I came out of the gate swinging with a sports cue like this. I mean, you need to hit the ground absolutely running. So. And so the lead sounds change. I think this is me. And then we come back into Donnie. All right, so yeah, let's break down these guitar parts. So we have the edge, again, left and right panned, running through different pickups and running through different amp sims. All right, so that's that. Now, I recorded these before I discovered the secret of this guy right here. This is a Joyo pedal called an American Sound. I was turned on to this by a producer friend of mine, a composer, producer, production music friend of mine who teaches at Berkeley up in Boston. And he uses this for all of his guitar tracks. So if you're going into an amp sim plugin like Guitar Rig, putting this is just an amp simulator, will add just enough bite, just enough girth, just enough weight to your signal so that the amp sim can really, really do something with it. And of course, you can push this pedal to, be fully distortion and everything, but I just use it really as gain staging with a little bit of bite to it. Really, really, really works well. And I've heard of another mastering engineer who says he can tell instantly if something has not gone through a pedal like this, and you'd be really surprised. And maybe later down the road I'll unpack this a little bit more. But these tracks actually don't have this, but that's the secret sauce right there. All right, and so we have another busy. And that's Donnie. Then we have Donnie again. So good. Donnie, man, I love you. I love you too, Chris. Don't get me wrong, but man, that lead guitar sound, and he just makes it sound so dang easy. You make me mad. All right, so then we get into our rhythm 2 here. We've got this super chunky. Just that twangy sound again. And so mixing them all together, all the guitars sound like this. Now, admittedly, I don't do a ton of rock, and the rock that I do produce is much more in this vein. So if you're looking for like metal or heavy rock, hard pounding, I'm not your guide to do that. But this kind of inspirational, uplifting, positive, CCM type sound, I've got this in the bag. I have worked out that the best way to kind of spread all these out is to work with your pans and make sure that you're sending things on opposite sides, and obviously making sure that you are doing a lot with your EQs so that it's not all ganged up in the same space. Otherwise, it just kind of sounds too dark and too just too roar-y. All right, so let's listen to each individual part as it pertains to this B section. The drums are pretty much the same. The loops are the same. The bass textures change. Going to more driving eighth notes. The bass, the sub bass is playing along more with what the drums are playing. The piano changes. The strings change. Big 5 sus chord taking us back to the 4 chord. Five sus to 5, but we go to the 4. Yeah, go to the 4 chord. All right, now when you're dealing with rock tracks like this, we still need something kind of new happening, but it doesn't necessarily fall into the every 4 bars. In this this application, it's every 8 bars. So I have 2 8-bar sections here, and so I save my second loop layer until the second 8 bars, and I save the lead line to take us out. All right, let's listen to Donnie's squealy fernty. And that was something that I specifically asked for. Can you give me some kind of pinch harmonics? All right, so back up that whole section. All right, so notice here, it's a double 8 bars. At the beginning, we had an 8-bar section, and then we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 12-bar section, and then we have 2 8-bar sections here at the end. Is that 12 bars? Counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 12-bar section. So we had 8 bars, 12 and 8. So we need to push the accelerator to really drive us home into that the final ending, the final stinger at the end. And so I bring back these guitar layers and I add a new lead out layer. And again, this is all guitar panned left and right. And so nothing too sexy at all, but you just sprinkle it in there. And by the way, these are the same things from the beginning of the track. Just big drop D, whole notes. Yeah, big, solid, fat chord there at the end. Make sure you end on the 1. Even though the phrase starts on a 4 chord, you absolutely have to end on the 1. So really straightforward mastering chain, nothing too fancy at all. Let me go back to the top here. Really simple equalizer, dynamics, exciter, an imager, post EQ, and then a maximizer. Really hitting some solid levels here. Oops. Yeah, really solid mastering. Pushing it, and this publisher specifically likes like -10 RMS, which is admittedly pretty darn loud, but you know, that's what the publisher wants, and so yeah, that's totally cool. And one of the things is because it's a sports highlight track. And so this track specifically was used a lot for flyovers. You know, they're flying over and showing you the whole, or cut to commercial slow motion of the player swinging into a shot. So the publisher did want different versions of this track. You notice this is version 3, and they wanted different versions of this track, and so I had to give them specifically different guitar energies. Okay, so I have a mix without the leads. I have the mix with fewer guitars. I have a mix where the strings are more prominent. Here, the guitars are really prominent, but I have another mix where it sounds much more kind of orchestral and less kind of rock driven. So at the end of the day, man, I'm all about doing what you do and doing it well, knowing what you may not do well, and surrounding yourself with people that can help you out. So calling up Donnie or Chris and saying, hey, you want to help me out? I can't pay you, but I can trade you services. Or maybe I can pay you and I can pay you $50. And something that comes really easy to them can be the thing that takes your track from good to great. And it might take it from sitting on the shelf to making broadcast air. So I hope this was helpful for you. A huge shout out to Chris Isaak and Donnie Smith for this track. You guys are amazing, and this makes me really think, hey, I need to call you guys up. It's been a hot minute since we worked together, and maybe I give them a shout out. So thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you found this helpful. If you dig it, why don't you hit that subscribe button, maybe hit that bell and get a notification. I do have a Patreon that you can check out. Just little $1 donations helps keep all of this going. So thanks for helping me along the way, and thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a stellar rest of the day and rest of your week. Best of luck. Peace.